My wife and I just got back from a vacation up on the UP, and we happened to visit a lighthouse up there called Big Bay. And I was kind of taken with the look of it, and I found a postcard of it and brought it home. And what I'm working on now is pen and ink of that lighthouse. For a typical drawing, it's got to be 20 hours. You know, I've never kept track of the time. It's kind of like fishing. You know, the time you spend doing it doesn't count against your lifespan, right? When I was a kid, I loved to draw, but I was lousy at it. I never had good eye-hand coordination, probably still don't. When I was 12, somebody gave me a set of drafting tools, and I discovered that I could guide my clumsy fingers with those, and that really is what led me to taking that up as a trade. I've always drawn. I like to make renderings in the old way, the way I was taught, with ink and ink wash of buildings. Went away to college and ended up majoring in mathematics, and discovered I could make a lot more money designing software than I could designing houses. So I worked for IBM 30 years, but I remained a draftsman during that time. Designed a number of houses here in Rochester and Olmsted County, about 2 dozen, I think. College Street, it's 4th Street Southwest now, was where the early movers and shakers of Rochester tended to build their homes. So I did a book on that called Old College Street, Historic Heart of Rochester, Minnesota. I used to do walking tours of Pill Hill. Its original name was College Hill. We would take 6 tours out in 1 week. Anywhere from 50 to 80 people would show up for each one. And the thing that I loved the most about it was learning anecdotal history from the people who were on the tour. We're at the corner of the Mayo Clinic Foundation House property. And along this wall, facing toward downtown Rochester, in 1856, was a white Greek Revival house built by George Head, who is acknowledged as the founder of the city of Rochester. Being a shrewd developer, he put his own house in a very prominent site. And anybody that came into town, either by river or by trail, looked up and saw that monster house sitting up there, and that said, this is Rochester and this is the place to live. The house remained a ruin until 1914, when Dr. and Mrs. William J. Mayo bought the property here. And so all traces of that house in the subsequent construction were lost. Those 2 guys personify the history of Rochester, each in a different era. And the book that I did on College Street was built around that whole premise, that these 2 men influenced the history. So I did 33 drawings, original pen and inks, for the book to show these buildings that aren't there anymore. I have 3 other books. The one immediately preceding this latest one was a book on the Ellerby firm and the history of all their houses in Rochester. I did a book on Old Frontenac, a little village over on the river, which is just a veritable time capsule. It's a little New England village from the 1850s, just dropped in the middle of Minnesota. And then the first book was on Harold Crawford, who happened to be a friend and mentor to me, was a master of the Tudor design. And that's why he has 60 houses up in that hill. Henry Plummer, a fascinating character. He was actually married to a niece of Will and Charlie Mayo, Daisy Berkman. The Plummer building downtown, the Mayo Plummer building, is named after him, of course. He bought 85 acres of land on the next hill over, which is called Quarry Hill. And his house is at the summit of Quarry Hill. Now we're in front of the house, and you can see the structure as designed by the Ellerby firm. It's a very classic Tudor house. The stone in this house was quarried here on site. Architecturally, Rochester's far more interesting than people give it credit for. The town itself is very rich in architecture. I've never had any trouble finding something to be interested in.